More buttons.
The stream is live.
We don't have the music, but that's okay. We can sing it.
So we're not doing music. So we have to hum along, do we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I need to spotlight you, John, and I can't work out how.
So here we are, nearly 4 years in.
I don't do this. You're asking me to do something that I don't normally do.
Yeah, you are doing what you normally do. That's interrupt.
Anyway, shall we move on? Welcome to the EV Café review of 2023 and a bit of a forward look to 2024 with 30 minutes of what has happened in sustainable transport in 2023 with expert analysis from the EV Café crew. Welcome one and all. Today's opinions on a stick are quite remarkably all of us. Johnny, Sarah, Sam and Paul are all here. So grab a cuppa and plug in to what's been happening in clean transport over the last year. And what we're going to do? Well, we're going to do a couple of things. I've got 5 stories that we can cover. So we can do those and that's fine. But what I wonder is, what about you people out there in the world? Have you got stories that have happened in 2023 that you'd like us to comment on or bring you up to date on or have a chat about? So if you have anything that you want us to talk about, stuff it in the comments and we'll see what we can do. But the plan is that we'll talk about the sad loss of British Volt and where that's gone. The music's here. He's done it. Yay! Now then, we'll talk about the sad loss of British Volt, the roller coaster for Volta, a cheeky look at unsustainable politics, and that gets quite interesting. The electric freightway and the move towards electric commercial vehicles, 2024, and the EV Café driving the hard yards outside of the echo chamber of EV. Really exciting plans for 2024. Let's start with how was Christmas, because I want to just check in on everybody, make sure that you're coping, because you haven't killed Auntie Gladys and you haven't strangled Uncle Brian. Paul, still married?
Yes. Can you move on to somebody else while I try and get something working?
All right. Something that's always working is Sam. What about you, mate? You had a good Christmas?
Oh, sorry, what's just amusing me is whilst I told Paul off for interrupting with his voice, he's now been able to find another way and do it with music.
But we love him nonetheless. A good Christmas for you, my friend.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, spent it with loved ones, and it's all over in a blink of an eye.
Spent it with loved ones and Sarah. Sarah, how was your Christmas?
It was good, although I'm a little lonely now because my daughter's away with her dad, which is lovely, but I don't get her back till Monday. So I'm going to drown my sorrows quite literally in what looks like a monsoon outside and try to do a long distance cross-country run in the next few hours.
Of course you are.
That's why I'm dressed like this, by the way, because I'm about to go out.
And can I just say a warm welcome to Johnny Berry. He's actually got on his EV Café t-shirt and everything. That's an effort.
Because
JB,
are you going to say why? Why?
No, I wasn't going to betray him. What a dirty boy. How are you, JB? All right?
Don't ask me what underwear I'm wearing. But anyway, but yeah, most importantly, catching up with family time over Christmas, as it's been a crazy busy year, as it was for most of us in this space. Thank you, John.
All right, mate. Now let us know in the comments how you're all doing. Anybody needs a lift, you know where we are. We're always on LinkedIn, and many of you have WhatsApp and WhatsApp groups that we use. Just reach out. Just let us know if things are a bit tough, and we'll be there in your corner. So, British Volt. So you might remember Blythe, the northeast of the UK, 17th of January, British Volt went into administration. But what's happened since? Well, on February 26, 2023, we had the good news that Recharge Industries announced that it had bought British Volt out of administration, and the company was sold for £8.6 million. Instead of automotive batteries, Scale Facilitation Chief Executive Officer David Collard said British Volt planned to initially focus on batteries for energy storage, making these available by the end of 2025. with batteries for high-performance sports cars to follow later. In late October 2023, the BBC reported that a deal to secure the Blythe site was close, with Recharge set to pay Ernst & Young EY $2.5 million in outstanding fees. Well, they should be left to dry, in my opinion. They got them in this mess in the first place. And to pay £11 million to property investor Catch. Recharge was also reportedly planning to supply batteries for Australian military vehicles through an Australian energy firm, EDEA. However, Northumberland County Council had doubts about Recharge's ability to deliver on its plan and has retained an option to repurchase the site in December 2024 if no substantial progress on developing the site has been made. In early November, the BBC and the Financial Times reported that Britishvolt had failed to pay its UK staff for the last 4 months, and the FT said that staff had warned the business may be trading whilst insolvent, and noted the receiver of the Blythe site was talking to other parties about buying the land, with Recharge no longer seen as a credible buyer. The future for the business and the site remains decidedly undecided. Now then, chaps, that's a bit pants, isn't it? We were hoping that something would come out of this, but it hasn't. Sarah, we need Gigafactory in the UK, don't we?
Yeah, I think for me, I keep focusing on this element of the jobs, not just at the site, but in the supply chain in a European way. Johnny's got some kind of tech issue now. He appears to have pixelated himself out. I don't know if that's just me. Come back close to
Maybe Paul did it.
Maybe Paul did it. That's what I just wondered. Okay, it's fine. But the thing about the jobs is, I was reading this morning quite a shocking fact that here in the UK you can earn more being a plumber than a doctor, and I hadn't really pieced that together in my mind before. So it's about starting young and building up the earnings over your lifetime. So it's a really interesting message for our industry, where we're still really short on people. Is people are sort of aiming for those jobs that they might have in the past considered higher, but just if Britishvolt ever happened, that would be 8,000 jobs in total, including the UK supply chain required. So yet another example of how hands-on work is so vital and so well paid.
And are we finding this is increasing our carbon footprint, in that we're having to import all of the materials in from China and other parts of the world, far flung? Presumably, Sarah, you manage our carbon footprint. You'll be keenly aware of the impact of importing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's such a massive topic to unpack, but it's about the fact that it's not as well regulated as we would like. So you can check your ESG, your supply chain, your footprint, but you have to trust that those suppliers overseas are also adhering to the same data rules that we would be asked to adhere to. So they might just say a figure and have very limited sort of policing on that figure. So it's all well and good saying we're completely offset, we're completely carbon neutral, but are you though? And the only way to ensure that is to have your own supply chain that you have approved as the end of the chain.
And talking of supplies, that's one area that we found was quite difficult through 2023, Johnny. Vehicles were difficult to get hold of at times. Is that still the case?
I'm not seeing it so much nowadays, to be honest. I mean, historically it was all around to do with semiconductors and other things, but I'm not seeing that so much nowadays.
And
I would say that it was, when it comes to the Volta piece, that highlights two real big things for us, really. Manufacturing is ridiculously hard, regardless of the vehicle type or the company, or the startup or legacy. And the second is there is slight volatility in the EV battery sector. As you briefly said earlier, Recharge Industries pivot to energy storage, then on to high-performance sports car batteries is strategic, considering the market demand.
Yeah, and presumably battery storage, Sam, that's a major component for the way that we, one, gain energy security, and two, provide renewables to vehicles that we all now rely on.
Yeah, it will be. It's going to be, as we on previous news articles, and we need battery storage for multiple of different use cases, whether that be on huge solar farms that we own, or electric forecourts where we've already got, what is it now, 5 megawatt hours of batteries and 6 megawatt grid connection. All that kind of stuff happens already, and it will trickle down into the domestic world as well, with batteries in people's houses to store energy when it's cheapest. So there's clearly a huge demand for this stuff, but Britishvolt sadly just didn't get it right for whatever reason, and it sounds very much like that's continuing. You don't often see a large startup like that recover. It's almost happened, but it just hasn't, has it? And we got very excited about it, but it's not a done deal until you can see the sale, the revenue coming in, and the business plan that really stacks it up, and it's not there, is it? So unfortunately, I think it's a slow death.
Yeah, the fat lady is singing. Now, Paul, haven't come to you for comment because I'm coming to you for this next story about Volta. So your area of expertise, give or take a world record. The UK business and assets of Volta Trucks has been sold to a new unit of the hedge fund Luxor Capital, which had invested heavily in the electric truck maker, the bankrupt company's administrators had said. This was late in 2023, November, and the administrator said the company had been sold to Volta Commercial Vehicles Limited without providing financial details. Volta, which is headquartered in Sweden but which had its operations in the United Kingdom, filed for bankruptcy following the bankruptcy in August of its supplier Proterra and uncertainty over its battery supply, which had made it hard to raise capital from investors. Proterra had subsequently been won at an auction by Volvo at a price of $210 million. Volta had raised a total of around 460 million euros from investors and had taken orders for more than 5,000 trucks before it filed for bankruptcy. Paul, you are besties with Carl Magnus Norden, the chief exec at Volta. What's happening, my man?
Okay, so Carl Magnus really has stepped back from the day-to-day running for the business, and that is now being handled by Essa El Sayi. Essa. And he is leading that business forward, and they are taking it forward in a much smaller way than they will have done previously. They still have challenges, so they need the money to get going, and then they need to sort of ramp up production and get into customer trials. But whenever a company's trying to fight back, as we've seen with British Volt, it is really tricky to regain confidence. And so there is a trust offensive, gaining back confidence back in suppliers that have been burnt. So they've lost money in this whole process. So there is a lot. It doesn't just kind of switch the lights on, switch the lights back, switch the lights off, switch the lights back on again. It is going to be a steady and challenging process, which Carl Magnus has stepped back from to some degree, but remains there as a very interested party. And I think what they're going to do is just focus on the delivery of the vehicles rather than the whole plan that they had before with truck as a service and other bits and pieces, the energy, and they're just going to focus on the vehicles and get those across the line.
Okay, thanks, mate. Now then, some interesting stuff in the comments. We'll say hello to a few people in a minute, but Neil Durno wants to know if you're available on OnlyVans and can he pay some private time required, I think, there.
Well, let me just say, because Jamie Fretwell is on the call, he got me this T-shirt. It's even got something on the back as well. So there you go.
Kick me hard.
Yeah, something like that.
No friends, only vans.
Yeah, that's my life. No friends, only vans. So Jamie Fretwell, thank you. It made me really smile on Christmas Day.
Jamie the crate of Tenzing. He knows I like the carbon neutral energy drink. Thank you, Jamie.
He's a good man. He bought me some milk tray, which was really lovely, which I scoffed. So thank you, Jamie. Appreciate
Sam's
that.
Just run off to get whatever he got here.
Oh, Neil Durno wants a public moment with Paul. That's very interesting.
That's even worse, Neil.
Not sure you're helping there, mate. Sam, you went off to get something.
Check that out.
Woo!
It's got a lightning bolt on it, but you can't see it so well. It's gorgeous.
That's very cool.
Gin company. That was for Sam and I to share, which we will be on New Year's Eve.
Get that man.
Or if there's any left.
Incredibly kind man, Jamie Fretwell from Mercedes-Benz Trucks. Bless you. He is a gorgeous, gorgeous man. Now then, let's say hello to a few people. Ashley Bannister was first in the room this morning. Bless your little heart. Rick Nimbley, Sam Clark, whoever he is, Wesley Holt Highfield, the first hyphenated of the day without a hyphen. Mark Elliott, Laura Hustwick Wilkes with a hyphen. Greetings. Ursula Perry from our friends at Greenfleet. Bless you. Dan Martin, Simon Acton, all the way from Ireland. What a butcher. Matthew Ling, David Bushnell, the aforementioned Jamie Fretwell is in the house. Neil Durno, Daryl Sharp. Who else we got? Ian Thompson asked a very interesting question, which we'll come to in a minute. David Bushnell, Daryl Sharp. Who else we got? I think we are about there more or less. So a small but discrete number. Now then, Daryl Sharp asks a question, guys, about HS2. And he says, with HS2 collapsing, do you think that the money should be spent electrifying the rest of the UK network so that all rail is electric, similar to what's happening in God's own country, Scotland? Let's start with JB. What do you think? Electrifying trains, big thing for you or not?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, if you can get any diesel trains off the tracks, then that's a good thing, right? But more so on those trains that are more targeted, that are going into clean air zones or going into city centres and stuff like that. So yeah. And
what about you, Paul?
Well, I'm not sure that there is any money to spend. I think the money that they've spent so far. They've still got a lot of HS2 to build. I don't think we're going to see any change like rolling around in the coffers to spend. So whilst it's a lovely idea, and I agree entirely, Swansea are very bitter that the electric for the train track ends in Cardiff. They should do that, but whether they'll have money from HS2 or not, I don't know.
Now, let's pick up on something that Ian Thompson's talked about, which is there was talk a couple of years ago about extracting lithium from places like Cornwall. Sarah, we've run this story a couple of times, so thanks for paying attention, Ian. But it was about Cornish lithium is a thing, isn't it? I mean, we have a mine there, and lithium is being mined at the moment.
Yeah, they've got two advantages, geological advantages, one being the seams of lithium available there, but how they extract it as well uses sort of geothermal heat, I understand. So the carbon footprint of extraction is really, really low. They've been looking into it now. I've known of it 5 years, and we're still not at the volumes that we would need to meet our own demands, but I just think it's an incredibly important opportunity. They were seeking investment when we ran the story last time. I hope that they continue to do so. Touching on the train one, though, if I may, the HS2 thing, you're right. It would be amazing, but Paul's hit the nail on the head. The whole point of it not happening is they run out of money. It was supposed to be £42 billion, and it came in at 95 in 2021, so they'd already massively overshot. But the only thing I would say, though, Darryl, is there could be inspiration here for future plans. Everything's done on a forward plan, 4 years minimum in government, local government. So between sort of now where it all goes wrong and 5 years time from now, somebody somewhere will have a very strong evidence case to say, well, look, perhaps decarbonisation of the electric railway wasn't the one, but look what we could achieve with passenger vehicles, fleet vehicles and electric freight instead. So putting together a better case for spending the money elsewhere for equal return, hopefully.
And huge investment going in from the private sector, Sam, into charging infrastructure. Do you think that it's important that that similar level of investment comes in for public transport? Because the big unspoken about evil, of course, is congestion.
Well, yes. I mean, you've kind of answered your own question, right? I mean, it does need the same amount of... Yeah. It was rhetorical, was it? Was that a trick?
Yeah, and then you don't get to speak, and then we can move on.
Yeah. But no, just to echo Sarah and Paul's points on HS2 as well, alas, it's not the case that there is any money, but even if there was, it's not as if someone goes, right, we've got a pot of money, anyone want to put their hands up for it? That's not how it works, is it? So... with money not being spent in one place doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lump available for somebody else in another sector. So it unfortunately doesn't work like that. But yeah, there is no money anyway. Clearly, I mean, they've overspent so colossally that it's a lack of money, not a pot that's available anyway. But yeah, in the transport sector, yes, as you've seen, and I know there's an article coming up about EHGVs. So there is money being put into, still going into transport from government, supported by private funding. So that's promising for next year.
Paul, I think there's a kindred spirit in the chat box in Peter Gennari, who says, morning, have been on here for a while. Bless you. Thank you for that. Good to see you all. And here is to a very interesting 2024 with some very interesting changes in the van world. Really? Interesting and van in the same sentence?
Surely not.
What do you know?
It's true, I tell you.
What do you know, Paul? What do you know?
I'm not sure what Peter's referring to. There's lots of change all the time going along, and there's new vehicles coming to market. But one of the key changes is, of course, the ZEV mandate, with 10% of all vehicles that have to be registered or will be registered will be electric vehicles. Or that's the challenge for the manufacturers. Otherwise, they're going to be paying a big load of cash unless they can kind of offset it with other people and all of that malarkey. So, it's an exciting time.
I think Peter is probably more likely referring to some larger vans, actually, potentially Luton style would be my guess, but we'll see.
Well,
because you
Peter,
know where Peter works.
I do. Well, I know a lot about vans, Paul. So
right, ladies, let's move on.
I also looked up his name on LinkedIn in the last 30 seconds while you were talking.
See, I don't need to do that because I know vans. Yes.
Well, you didn't.
Peter, throw us a bone. Tell us specifically what changes you're looking forward to. ZEV mandate, exactly. So, Paul, you were bang on. Look at that. He's good, you know.
He is good.
Thank you, Peter.
But he has
I'll
no
pay you
friends.
later.
Right, let's move on to the disappointment that is the unsustainably sustainable politics of this country and indeed the world. The headline from COP28 for me was the watering down of the commitment to transition away from fossil fuels as it concluded in Dubai in December. Now, that was COP28. Does anyone know what COP stands for?
Cool, good question.
I
It's
do.
Conference of all Parties. It's Conference of all Parties.
Conference of Parties. Sarah is correct. She wins an EV Cafe mug that she's probably got a cupboard full of. The nations have reached an agreement to fund assistance for those most impacted by climate change and also to transition away from fossil fuels in energy systems. Despite important progress, COP28 fell short of delivering the decisive action on climate change that science needs. This came shortly after the UK government announced that the 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel only cars would be moved to 2035. But I did a little bit of independent research to see where we sit compared to other countries. Norway's looking at a tighter deadline than the UK as it plans to end the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2025. Other countries planning a ban on petrol and diesel cars in 2030 include the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden and Ireland. The UK, USA and China are 2035. India, France and Spain are 2040. But here's the kicker. Over 60% of the world has no such target at all. Russia has no commitment. There is almost none in South America or Africa or Australia. That's horrific. And then you start to think about if we move to electric vehicles, we have then lots of potentially used vehicles that could be exported, moved around the world at much lower prices. And we could see, according to the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, the doubling by 2050 of the on-road vehicle fleet. And it's estimated that will go from 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion. That's horrific. And in some countries, they're predicting a 4 or 5-fold increase in internal combustion engine vehicles, mostly coming from the second-hand market. Sarah, our roads can't cope with this nonsense, can they?
No, I think those traffic projections are terrifying. I think it brings back to the point of public transport is essential, particularly if it was decarbonised. But something that I've been thinking about with COP, it's been all over the news, of course, and people feeling like there's going to be loopholes generated everywhere if everybody doesn't sign up to the same sort of basis. But it was always supposed to be I think they say it's a platform, not a ceiling. So the targets have already been set by the countries that have agreed to go ahead and have agreed to state their claims on what they're going to do. Leaves humongous gaps on the global map of where people aren't covered. And I know you've done a graphic on this, so you should probably share that and just show how massive those potential loopholes are. But there is a huge socio-economic debate that goes on with this one about is it fair that we've had all this time to pollute and other countries have not had time to do anything to develop? So I don't know how these statements are worked out. Is it on how polluting you've already been already versus what you have to do to clean up now as a result? Or is it that actually we are allowing other countries to develop to a reasonable level, bearing in mind some of the ones that aren't shown on your map don't have that reasonable level at all? So, for us in the UK, we've got a lot to do. We've got the power to do it. We've got the investment to do it, got the cash to do it, but other countries really don't have that benefit, and we may see some human disasters as a result of clamping down on them as well, in the same way as you would with us. The one on my mind is Russia. What? How did they get away with not doing anything?
But presumably a lot of this comes back to that earlier statement about finance.
Russia, I know.
And that supporting countries that have less assets that they can bring to bear and very often are dependent upon oil revenue. Johnny, you have quite a strategic mind. How do we solve this issue of helping and guiding and supporting other countries to make the change? Because it feels to me that whatever we do in the UK is but a bite on a gnat's bottom in comparison to what needs to happen.
I mean, comparing the UK with other countries like Norway, Netherlands, and even China, India, does illustrate the varied pace of EV adoption globally. But it's crucial to balance the ambition with practicality. The only thing I would say is, and the human disaster thing that Sarah mentioned, time is not on our side. That's the main thing. And as time goes on, we will have more and more evidence for the urgent need for more decisive action across countries against climate change. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments as I go along.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for the
Very
comments.
nice.
They're coming in thick and fast, and it's really helpful.
John, I think the word I would put out that it depends on or dependency, I suppose, if I extend the word you used in one of your statements just now, I think that's part of it for me, is the dependency that we have on oil and gas and the influence that us as small countries can have on the world. It might not be fast enough, but at least it enables us to be able to drive the change that then shifts the supply and demand market for all these different commodities over the world. And then the net result of that is that we all benefit from a better planet. So I guess that's part of the allure of people like us who are very, very small, but have a large influence on what happens globally as a result.
And are granting licenses for new oil fields as we speak. Paul?
Yeah, I was just thinking that because we're in the G7, right? So we're one of the seventh largest economy in the world. We are demanding a lot of the globe, and we're demanding a lot of the countries like Africa, like India, like China, and we are the cause of those emissions. And it was interesting talking to Indiva Singh just before Christmas there at the London EV show, hearing about the pollution in India, which we all think is horrendous, and it actually is in places, but per head of capita, it's like less than here in the UK or in other countries. So we have a responsibility as individuals to demonstrate the difference, and also then to help, as one of the largest economies in the world, to then help the smaller economies, the people with less money, to be able to do this. And this is all about that fairness thing, isn't it, that we're experiencing here in the UK, just with home charging and public charging, the disparity between cost, and how to make that level. It's a very, very difficult circle to square, or square to circle, or whichever way around that goes.
Precisely. Let's have a triangle and be done with it. Daryl Sharp asked an interesting question. Will we see you participating in the EV Rally 2024? I'm there. Sarah, are you coming?
John and I are hosting it in 2024, and the others will hopefully shove a microphone in their face at some point if they can make it. Yeah.
Pablo's there.
Yeah, I'm there with Maxis again. So
excellent. Samuel, you've graced us with your presence in the past. Will we see you again?
Every year. Yeah, I'm just car shopping at the moment to work out what I'm going to bring this year. But yeah, I'm sure I will be there in one capacity or another.
Oh,
you're the ultimate hero. You're just like, can anyone take me on their team? And Lorna McAteer from National Grid has been very good to you. But yes, I am hopeful that you will be able to do this mad car idea that you have had before.
Plus many others that I kindly declined. I just like to point out. It's not like I was scrambling around going, please pick me.
Oh no, because there's an orderly queue that wants Simon.
Yeah, exactly.
Simon? Who's Simon?
Anyway. And JB, you have a massively busy schedule. Can you squeeze us in for a little one?
I'm sure I can make it work. It's quite far apart. Especially after watching back the video content, I did get some FOMO. So we've had the opportunity this year, shall I say, it was never going to happen because my wife was due to give birth the week it commenced. So,
indeed. How inconsiderate.
Yeah, being in Wales probably might not work. It's not happening this time of year, though. So.
Pablo.
I didn't want to interrupt. only interrupt when Sam's talking.
New Year's resolution. We'll get to that.
I wanted to say about the...
That's very good of you, Paul.
That's fine. The EV Cafe is hopefully, we're considering how we might put in a vehicle of our own. So it's one that's it's a complete secret. We don't tell anybody. It's NDA and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But we are thinking about can we have a fun bus or a mystery tour or something like that?
Like the village on tour. The village on tour.
Exactly. So watch this space, people. There may be a EV Cafe representation.
Interestingly, Ursula Perry from Greenfleet is on the call. She's in Val Thorens at the moment, skiing. Bless her. Must be a tough life. And she just said, as we mentioned, the Greenfleet EV rally, yay! Can't say to blame you. We all do the same. Let's talk about which version of the rally. Now then, there's an interesting question. There are 4 versions of the rally this year. There's a big one, which is the July one. And then there's Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. So Sarah and I will both be doing the big one. Sarah and I will be divvying up the other 3, and basically she can do whichever ones she fancies, and I'll just pick up the scraps because I love Scotland, I love Wales, and I love Ireland. What about the rest of you guys? You're going to do the big one in July. Might you do a smaller one? Paul, you like a smaller one?
I already have a smaller one. Yeah, it's possible. We'll see. I mean, we have got a very, very busy schedule in the next 12 months. Indeed. Already with EV Cafe on tour and other elements of EV Essentials. So there is a lot of them, a lot of things going on. So yeah, I hope so.
Now then, I think we should just say it's 10:30 and I'm so far behind it's untrue because we're just having a ball here. Are we all okay, the 5 of us, to stay on for another 10 minutes or so? Yep. Yes? Is that, we getting thumbs? Yes, good. If you're still with us and you want us to keep going, let us know in the comments. We'll just batter on for a little while longer because we're getting to some really juicy stuff. The electric freightway. Sam, you can sit up now and shine your halo. By 2040, all new heavy goods vehicles will be zero emission, and ahead of the deadline, GridServe is leading a £100 million consortium, including 62.7 million of UK government support, to lay the foundations for one of the biggest and most advanced charging networks designed specifically for electric heavy goods vehicles. This industry-leading project, funded as part of the Department for Transport and Innovate UK-backed zero-emission HGV and infrastructure demonstrator programme, will thankfully be known as the Electric Freightway and will run until 2030. And it has 5 or so objectives. EHGV charging hubs installed at motorway service stations and truck stop locations, more than 10 commercial depot charging locations for EHGVs, over 200 chargers capable of delivering 350 kilowatts, a trial of 2 1 megawatt chargers, the infrastructure to be supplied by 100% net zero energy, around 140 EHGVs to be used by UK-based companies to use the network, and the data will be collected for 5 years. Sam, massive project. What do you do in your spare time?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about this before, so I won't dwell on it. But there's 2 things that spring to mind really. And yes, it is a big project, and I've certainly never won £100 million contract before, so that's probably the only time I'll ever do that in my career. But you know, it's a massive catalyst to get things going, but actually it's quite small. The reality is that we've got a huge undertaking to get those EHGVs on all trucks and commercial vehicles electric from 2040 and onwards. So it's merely a start. That's all it is. You know, we've got to try and revolutionise an entire transport sector, and that is what this will be. Not just here in the UK, but you know, as my CEO Todd always says, got to move the needle on climate change. The UK on its own isn't going to do it. So this is very much not just this, but also the wider GridServe agenda is to make a difference globally. And a bit of news for the day as well, which is not so positive, is that we've seen a lot of news lately about the tariffs being deferred for import duties for electric vehicles into the UK. Great news. However, it does not include tractor and trailer units. So that 10% remains for my project and everybody else's, which means we're going to be paying £30,000-40,000 potentially more per vehicle on every vehicle coming into the UK, because that particular sector, that one little bit, is not included in the tariff changes, which is really, really frustrating. So we're paying an awful lot more money, which means that 140 probably won't be 140 because now everything's 10% more expensive than it should be. So there's already, you know, challenges there in terms of what we're trying to achieve, and the legislation and Brexit and everything else getting in the way of that, even now. So not wishing to finish on a negative, but it's not all positive. You know, this is a great thing. It's a great project. There's lots of other projects going on as well. It will make a difference, and I'm proud to be leading one of the projects which will actually make a material difference in this country, I hope. But there is still an awful lot of work to do. Where it's the tip of the iceberg, and we've still got a lot of legislation getting in our way.
That's really helpful to bring that to the table, Sam, because it's frustrating when you get policy that pulls in different directions. We have a great initiative from government, £63 million of its own money, and then this ridiculous tax, which we stop for cars, stop for vans, but don't stop the import duty being given on trucks. That's fascinating.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, it's rigids are okay, but it's just the tractor units that don't meet that criteria. So it's incredibly frustrating, and it will be frustrating for manufacturers too. I'm sure Jamie's still online. I mean, half of his vehicles will be eligible for the deferment of that, and half of them won't be. I'm not sure whether the proportion is 50-50, Jamie, so don't shoot me. But he'll have the challenge there of certain vehicles being disproportionately more expensive now than they are relative to their smaller vehicle counterparts. So, yeah, tough. But we'll work it. We'll work around it. We'll find a solution as always, and crack on.
Thank you, Chris Jackson. Classification HS8701 in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement for those with time to read about the battery electric vehicle tractor situation. That's really helpful. Thank you. Ian Thompson, what happens if a diesel tractor pulls up with a Krona E Mega Liner electrically assisted trailer? Is there enough space to recharge? I think it's too early to say, Sam. Would I be right?
I don't know what a Chrome E Mega Liner is, but I suspect it's a secondary trailer which requires its own power source. And yes, what we are putting provision in for AC charging to help support the power of the rear trailer units, such which I think this probably fits within, including things like refrigerated vehicles and other types of trailer which needs power. But diesel, no, so that they will have to go and charge their trailer unit wherever they would normally charge their trailer unit. But if it's an EHTV with an electrically powered trailer on, then there'll be facilities both for charging the tractor unit and the trailer unit.
And a question I've got is the charging network open just to consortium members, or is there anybody with an electric truck?
No, it will be open. So we're going to have reservation and bookability, but it'll also be bays open to anybody that wants to use it, providing they meet the criteria of the type of vehicle. So we can't have a Renault Zoe charging on a EHGV bay. But if we've got the likes of the longer wheelbase vans or the rigids or the other things, they will be able to utilise the network as well.
Oh, you said bookability and reservation.
Only for commercial world.
We can only dream of such things.
There's a very clear distinction there between B2C and B2B, and that is only a B2B solution.
Right, before we fire into...
On the megawatt charger, Sam.
Sorry, Johnny, say again?
I'll be clogging up the bay on the megawatt charger in my Tesla.
Yeah, well, we're gonna need some vehicles that can take a megawatt, so they've got to catch up with us now. The chargers are available, but the vehicles aren't yet. But then again, this is how we prompt and push and help support that technology to advance. So then I'll be sure to send you a ticket, Johnny, when you block it.
We've got a bit of a forward look now to 2024, but before we do that, let's very, very quickly whistle round the room. Highlights of 23 for you personally, to do with the EV Cafe and our work. Let's start with Sarah. What was your highlight of 2023?
I was going to say the EV Rally because that was exceptional, I would say. But I just loved watching. It wasn't my concept, it was yours. But watching the growth of the EV Cafe Village, and then I'm looking forward to on tour in 24 and seeing what happens with it as well. And more people want interested in it. Just got to work out how to make it work for everyone. So that's exciting.
JB.
The opportunity to demystify EVs through panel discussions, webinars, any opportunity really, any forum.
Sam?
I'm just proud of the fact that we've been able to spread the message so far and wide, John. I mean, it's often when I'm networking at various events and say, have you heard of the EV Cafe? And it's like, well, of course I have, as opposed to, oh, what's that about? Or what? No, never heard of it. It seems 9 times out of 10, whether people watch it or they know about it, even if they've not watched it, which means we're spreading the message, and that's positive. We've always said over these many years, 3 or 4 years now, we've got to break those church walls. But it's fantastic to see our message and our passion to get electrification started spreading across far and wide. It's a proud thing to be part of.
And Pablo, for you, highlight.
I can't limit it to one because I think there's
Why follow a rule?
Exactly. There's two things that have really stood out to me. One is the privilege of doing the EV Cafe Takeaway, the podcast where we've been able to talk to and celebrate so many great stories through the year, and really kind of raise everything that our community finds important, which is, the obviously electrification of vehicles, batteries and charging, but also mental health as well, and the community aspect of things. So we've really seen a very rounded and brilliant set of stories there. And then of course, the EV Cafe Village, particularly Fleet Mobility Live, the way that event came together and the energy that was in that event was really great. But those were the two super cool things for me. Yeah,
I think for me it was about the things that people don't see. Actually, it was the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, where either we five have a moment where we're just laughing because we love what we do and we're creating stuff, and that's really fabulous. And the other thing is meeting people who've seen what we do and them feeling like they know us, which is great. It's just lovely to feel that we have a place in people's lives. There was one particular comment about the news, and somebody said, "You're the highlight of my week," and having that 10 o'clock in the diary every Friday to come along and just see you having fun and talking about the industry, it just makes it all worth doing, and that's so incredibly kind. It's not the stuff you do in front of camera very often, it's the stuff we do behind the scenes that I think really matters. But in front of the camera, sorry, have you vomited? How rude. Just to give you some sense of what that looks like, the EV Cafe has had 6,200 hours of webinar, podcast and news content watched in 2023. And we met around 100,000 people at shows, smashing myths and supporting the transition to zero-emission transport. But as has been alluded to a couple of times, we've got a lot more to do. 2024 is going to be frenetic. And as Sam rightly said, we're getting out from the echo chamber of EV, because we can't just keep talking to each other and saying, aren't we all fabulous? We've got to go out and help those who are EV curious to understand the facts rather than all of the garbage that's out there in the mainstream media. There'll be a subscriber email coming out from us next week, straight to your inbox, giving more details. But here's a quick heads up. We've got some new partners to announce, haven't we, Paul? As well as our familiar friends.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yes. 12 webinars, JB. Oh, yeah, not them.
No.
Yes, we've got 12 webinars next year. And we'll make sure we get beyond the EV community to join in as well.
Absolutely. We've got 9 live events in the calendar. Many of them have the brilliant EV Cafe Village. Quickly explain, Paul, what the Cafe Village is.
So the EV Cafe Village is a space that is around the EV Cafe team and stand, if you like, but everybody plays their own part. So in sometimes it's like a small shell scheme, and other times it's just, park on the area, and we all support one another by introducing all of our contacts to each other. So it's a curated space, and it is a really great way of keeping the energy high, maximizing the opportunities of people to talk together and collaborate together and introduce people. And it's a very cost-effective way of having a big impact by in a small way. If that makes sense.
It does indeed. And we've also got, you do like the word small, interestingly. We have 52 podcasts planned. So a weekly podcast is planned for 2024. There has been some discussion about whether the frequency of that needs to increase, and we might do some more. It'd be really helpful to know, could you take some more podcasts from us, or are we getting it about right with one a week? Let us know in the comments. Obviously, the news broadcasts. I'm looking now to do a breaking news update. So going to TikTok and Instagram to give breaking news feeds. So as we get news stories, because we see them all day, every day, when the big stuff hits, getting quick and dirty information to you so that you can keep up to date with what's going on. We've got the plan for vans, which is being being launched in the first quarter of 2024. Paul, we're working with industry, trade bodies and leaders in logistics to bring this plan for vans together.
We are, yeah. So a company or organizations like the BVRLA, Logistics UK, AFP, others are all coming together, along with, of course, a lot of the people actually doing it at the coalface. There is still that real challenge for vans. Everybody was talking about hitting 25,000, then it got down to 21,000. Now we won't break 20,000. It's still a big challenge. And so there's a lot to be lobbied to get government support and understanding, particularly in the used sector, making sure that that's good and making sure that, on-street public charging and those kinds of things for the vans that go home. So there's a lot to be done and a lot of people really keen to push this agenda forward.
Speaking of helping and pushing forwards, we've got a new training proposition which we've been working on over the last couple of months. And Sarah, you've been key in helping us to get to grips, not only with the EV training that we do, but with CSR and ESG. Tell us a little bit about that ESG program that we've put together.
Yeah, thank you. It's from my experience at Playthrough, really, that I wanted to kind of pay forward, which is that it's very confusing out there how to begin this process if you're a business looking to assess and then offset, or even better, reduce your carbon footprint. So we together as a team have thought about the steps to take to do that. So it's very much a sort of workshop based, led by us, including sort of expert advice from outside of us, to help other companies to accelerate towards their ESG position as well. But part of that, and I don't know if you're going to come on to it, is our charitable giving pledge that in 2023 we helped 10 fabulous charities, all put forward by viewers and followers of the EV Café. So thank you for that. And we also pledge that 2024 we will do even better. And that's what today's about. I'm actually looking at my watch thinking I've got to get on those trails soon, otherwise I won't get my training run in. But I'm doing a run for a local schools group in February, which I put my hand up to support as one of our charitable pledges. So more on that. If you've got any charities that you're keen to support, please do let us know. We want it to go right to the heart of communities, not just into big pits that never get seen anything meaningful from.
As you rightly point out, Ian Thompson, it is a very flexible 10 minutes. But when we get talking, that happens. Very, very quickly, just final thing, something that you're going to do as a New Year's resolution or a commitment to improve our world over the next 12 months. Paul?
Oh, man. So I'm just going to carry on with the challenge of vans. That is my New Year's resolution, is not to stop, because there is such a big challenge. Got to continue. That's my New Year's resolution.
Excellent. Sarah?
Thank you. On this, though, New Year's resolutions can be highly pressurized, and I wouldn't encourage anybody to feel that way about them. But 2 years ago, I decided that in my very sedentary desk-based life, I needed to carve out a minimum of 20 minutes every day for physical exercise or just headspace or something that was not being told what to do by my computer. So that has long continued, and I've taken it to the extreme, as I'm sure you'd imagine. So I'm getting my stats in on the 31st. I cannot wait. So I plan to continue. The best thing is continuous improvement, not stopping and starting. So I will hopefully be upping my own game in 2024.
Yeah, Daryl's right. And I did say that it was either resolutions or commitments that you would make, because Daryl says, do you think it should be habit changes and not resolutions?
Absolutely, yeah, I do, Daryl. That's a great point. Yeah.
If it's going to be sustainable, most definitely. Johnny, what's your habit change that you will bring about in 2024?
I too am going to put health first as well. So no more living a sedentary lifestyle. So that's number one. I also want to agree with Paul. I want to support commercial van fleet operators with access to charging. So yeah, that's my work. And then also to hopefully have some more time to enjoy these insightful discussions every Friday with you, John. So yeah, they're the three kind of main commitments I'm going to make in the new year. And dry January and big January.
Good grief. Going to be a busy man. Sam?
I think my commitment or resolution will be to try and not leave 15 days holiday on the table at the end of the year and actually try and use some of it instead. That would be quite nice. So I think for mental health, if nothing else, try and find time to take a break. It's probably what I'll try and do for next year.
Well said, Sam.
Because we saw you unwell for a couple of times this year, Sam, and you do work incredibly hard. So look after number one, because we'd be a bit lost without you, mate. Now then, that was a bit dark, wasn't it? Anyway, let's move on. If you've got any clean transport, PR or news stories you'd like us to cover, please send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next
What's yours,
Friday.
John? John, what's yours?
I was rather hoping you wouldn't ask me, but it's to work hard to help people understand autism, because I've recently been diagnosed with it and nobody would know unless you know. But there are lots of people who carry around mental health stuff that is undiagnosed and impacts the way we interact with each other. And I've learned a lot this year, and I hope to help other people learn what it means for me and how they can best help me to be the best me I can be. Because sometimes I can't control the things that I would like to be able to control, but I can with some support.
You are an inspiring figure. I think everyone will agree. You do inspire people, even if you don't realise it. So we'll support you on this journey 100%, John Curtis.
Bless you, and I know you already have. I know there have been things that you've all done to help me cope with some situations when I get uncomfortable. And Neil Durno is absolutely bang on. Autism is a superpower. And the trick is to find out how to utilize it. Timekeeping is clearly not one of the things I'm good at.
Yeah, it's 10 to 11.
Right, okay, let's get on with it. This has been an EV Cafe production brought to you with experience, connections, and a whole heap of passion. Other sustainability news services are available, but this is just funner and longer. The EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA, Plug Me In, Pay Through, Zaptec, Spiri, Hydrock, Interval, Kersha, Dynamon, and McIntyre Hudson. We love you. We are the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to zero emission transport. Enjoy the rest of your day, your weekend, wherever it takes you. Keep moving forward sustainably into 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Until next Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, well
It'll be
done,
time
Paul.
for
You
the EV
got
Cafe news in a minute.
I got some tech right. Yay!
You did. You did an amazing
Well
job.
done, Pablo. Thank you for doing that,
Recording
mate.
now.